Blair Best. It's Thursday here on The Story, and tonight, a state policy in Washington under fire just weeks after being implemented. Why some state lawmakers say the policy goes against the science. Plus, a Multnomah County audit update shows the Homeless Services Department has not implemented two crucial recommendations, and one of them will have you shaking your head. But first, we want to talk about the ongoing efforts to bring people back to downtown Portland. Some working, others not so much. It's our big story tonight. We're going to take a different approach tonight regarding efforts to revitalize downtown. Instead of just talking about them, we're going to grade them. And you can tell us afterwards if you agree or disagree with our grading. First, encouraging office workers to come back downtown to work full-time. We're going to give that a D. Anyone who is going to come back to their downtown office likely already has after all this time, and we're left with around a 32% vacancy rate for offices as of the fourth quarter of 2024. That's according to Prosper Portland. Basically, 1 in 3 offices sits empty. The city of Portland can't even get all of its own workers back downtown full time. Many are only in the office for half the week. Both former Mayor Ted Wheeler and current Mayor Keith Wilson have tried and failed to order all of them back more often. Mayor Wilson gave up on the idea within a week after union pushback and only ordered managers and supervisors to return full-time starting in April of this year. In that same vein, turning those vacant offices into housing so far has been a massive failure. For now, we're giving it an F. What we've heard is that the cost to convert offices into apartments is too high when you factor in things like earthquake retrofits, windows, and plumbing. And everyone would rather, apparently, just have the building sit empty than give it a try. Not to mention the permitting needed to get a project like that underway. On the other hand, downtown events have more or less been a success, so we're giving those an A. There have been more events downtown, and data shows many of them have gotten more foot traffic year over year. There was the Winter Light Festival earlier this month, and other winter holiday events like the tree lighting, Tuba Christmas, and the Winter Ice Rink all had higher attendances this past winter than the year before. And a report by Travel Portland showed last summer's events had the strongest attendance since the pandemic, bringing 2 million people downtown in June and July. Now, this is one story viewers seem to care a lot about: the return of the Thompson elk statue that used to stand downtown. Right now, we're grading this with an incomplete. The city says it's coming back after it was heavily damaged in protests all the way back in 2020. Nearly 5 years ago. But the timeline keeps getting pushed back. The latest report says it won't be back until the end of this year. So that's our progress report on where we are now. But this week, we learned about some new things coming to downtown Portland that might bring more people. And if they're successful, might move the needle a little further from downtown recovery towards revitalization. First, the Grand Floral Parade will be back this spring during the Rose Festival. It's been entirely on the east side since 2022, but before the pandemic, it spanned both sides of the river, crossing the Burnside Bridge. This year, it'll only be downtown. The president of the Rose Festival Board says this idea came from Mayor Keith Wilson. Keep in mind, the festival depends on city resources like police and PBOT.
We have to pick one because for the last 3 years, we've had the resources to do a route that is about 2 to 2.5 miles long. And this year, we worked with the city, specifically the mayor's office, to help fulfill some campaign promises, right? Revitalizing the downtown core. And so, since we can't traverse the bridge, and with some support from Travel Portland and from the city of Portland, we're able to make sure that this event happens on a vetted and safe route downtown Portland.
The route will be the same as the route for the Starlight Parade, which happens 1 week earlier. Mayor Wilson says downtown Portland is where the Grand Floral Parade should be.
But as we look to the future, it's time to bring this grand celebration back to the heart of our city, to bring us all back to the city. This move is not just about changing the location, it's about bringing us together in our urban core and reminding us of why we all love Portland and why the renaissance is within our reach together when we celebrate together.
The Rose Festival is urging downtown business owners to decorate their windows for the festival and to invite people in during the parade. We also learned this week that the Portland Opera will be moving downtown. They spent 2 decades in Southeast near the waterfront until they sold their building last year. Now they're moving into the World Trade Center on Southwest Salmon Street. Their new space will house their administrative offices and a 200-seat theater. They'll also still have performances at bigger venues around town. CEO Sue Dixon says she felt a responsibility to be part of downtown Portland's recovery.
Music heals, and I just wanted to be part of that healing for our city. The last couple of years has been really rough, and we've gotten a bad reputation through the media, in New York, and just not here in Portland. And so I want us to just be part of the arts ecosystem here. It's really important to us, as well as the businesses. And maybe if we're here and we're activating downstairs the plaza and there's activity happening, more and more organizations will want to come back and be part of this.
As she says, their patrons are excited about the move.
I was a little concerned that we would get some pushback by some of our long-standing patrons, but everyone has been really positive about it. The move was really about being fiscally prudent, and I think everyone understands that we have really been good stewards of this organization over the last 4 years since the pandemic, and it's just really important for us to really right size and figure out how can we sustain our art form and also make sure that we are providing something that the community wants and the community can afford to be part of.
The Portland Opera will open their new space this summer. And there's one more plan to tell you about. Standard Insurance is renovating its offices on Southwest 6th Avenue. They're planning the renovation around the idea that their workers will probably only be there on a hybrid basis, not full time. They're planning to set up co-working spaces that people can use just for the day, along with meeting rooms and breakout spaces. Most Standard employees are doing hybrid work across the country, and there's no requirement for them to be in the office. But they say they're hoping the renovations will better serve workers who do decide to come downtown. Okay, now we want to hear your opinions. What grade would you give downtown recovery efforts? Have you noticed things getting better, getting worse? Give us specific examples. We love to hear it. Email us the story at kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail 503-226-5090.
It's a great day to be here in Oregon.
Governor Tina Kotek today in Millersburg near Albany, south of Salem, for a groundbreaking on one of the country's largest cross-laminated timber manufacturing facilities. The nearly 200,000 square foot building will be made of wood from Oregon and sustainable building materials. Once built, the facility itself will produce up to 9 million square feet of mass timber each year.
I think one of the things that we do in Oregon really well is we make things, and we are a timber state, right? So we are taking our timber products, putting it into new innovative materials.
This facility will help drive innovation, expand access to high quality CLT, and create jobs, all while helping us reduce our carbon footprint in our built environment.
A massive example of mass timber, the exposed beams at the newly renovated Portland International Airport. This project near Albany is expected to create some 100 jobs. Forecasts estimate that mass timber construction will grow from 750 new projects in 2025 to 5,000 by 2035. Now, those behind this project say they're working to revitalize the timber industry in Oregon, reinvest in those rural communities, and convert concrete and steel jobs to mass timber instead.
The industry has been looking for a spark, a reason for one more shot, another round to incorporate economic diversification and stabilization into Oregon's rural communities. And over the past year, we've had our heads down working to acquire 3 rural manufacturing facilities in towns like Drain, Swiss Home, Philomath, and now we stand here today in Millersburg.
Now, while we had the governor in front of our cameras this morning at that groundbreaking, we wanted to ask how her meeting went with Multnomah County Chair Jessica Vega Peterson this week, following the chair's request for the state for $55 million to help close the county's budget gap of well over $100 million for its homeless services department. Here's what the governor had to say to us today.
And my message to the county is, let's work together to prioritize every dollar you can put towards homeless services before we talk about any additional investment from the state.
So we asked what the likelihood is that Multnomah County would get more state money for homelessness. The governor was cautious.
Well, currently right now, if the legislature passes my budget, we would already be heading towards $60 million into Multnomah County for homeless services. They're asking to double that amount. I don't know if that's achievable, but what I know we can figure out with the resources we have, we're going to serve people the best we can. But that takes the county, the city, the state, and Metro all working together.
Of course, we'll be watching to see how that all shakes out. Now, one of the biggest issues that Multnomah County and the city of Portland have struggled with when it comes to the homeless crisis is accountability. We showed you during yesterday's city-county meeting that they still are not tracking numbers when it comes to how many people are newly becoming homeless and how many people are leaving the streets, leading to stunning statements like this one from a county commissioner.
I'm concerned about the continued lack of data of inflow and outflow because we actually have no idea whether there's a net reduction in homelessness without that, and we've been promised that for a while.
No idea if there is a net reduction in homelessness. Yeah, not great. But if you thought issues around homelessness accountability could not get any worse, think again. The Multnomah County Auditor released a report this week after looking into the Homeless Services Department and if they've implemented recommendations that were given after a previous audit in 2023. Here's a little graph to show you that progress of the 8 recommendations given. The smallest blue bar is the 1 recommendation the county has implemented. The gray bar represents 5 recommendations that are in progress, and the orange bar represents the 2 that have not been implemented. And let's just say those 2 seem crucial. Let's start with those. First, and arguably the most important, the Homeless Services Department did not implement a recommendation that directed executive management to, quote, communicate their strategic vision to providers and staff. One would think the strategy for a Homeless Services Department would be to get people off the streets and into a more stable situation. But no such strategic vision is being discussed, apparently. The other recommendation not happening is to remove a conflict of interest from program specialists. The audit says those specialists are both the primary advocate for homeless service providers and the ones who are supposed to hold those same service providers accountable for meeting goals. The audit says that should not be happening for reasons that seem obvious, but the county did not agree with this recommendation, writing, they provide routine discussions about strategies for balancing those dual roles occurring between program staff and program management, which includes reviews of best practices and tools, as well as problem solving. Now to the 1 recommendation that has been implemented, hiring a contract management specialist. In fact, the county has hired 3 senior positions which oversee that process. As far as the 5 recommendations in progress, those include things like communicating between service systems, certain payment issues regarding contracts, ensuring fairness among providers, and training staff on reviewing equity plans. The audit also included quotes from some of the 73 service providers themselves and how they view the Homeless Services Department. These providers are the groups and nonprofits the county gives money to in order to address the homeless crisis on the ground. Several expressed frustration. One said, program teams we providers work with regard themselves as advocates for providers, but are still expected to enforce contract requirements. Another added, it seems now that joint office staff are being put in a position where they aren't able to support us in key ways anymore, and we are struggling. The results from that survey in the audit reveal providers said the county did a, quote, poor job in providing policies that are, quote, easy to understand. That actually got worse from the last time those same providers were surveyed in 2022. And providers were split on if the county gave them clear system goals. Maybe having a strategic vision communicated with staff and providers would help. The The auditor certainly thought so back in 2023. Now, we asked Multnomah County for its take on this check-in of recommendations by the county auditor, and they told us the Homeless Services Department is glad this report confirms we've made progress on implementing most of the recommendations from the 2023 audit. We also acknowledge that we still have work to do to improve how we communicate our policies and vision. It may take time to have the desired impact for all staff and providers. They went on saying coordinating and communicating to a network of over 70 providers is work that will never be done. It will require continuous improvement. And the statement went on to say the county is committed to making those improvements. Well, coming up next on the story, commercial fish farms along state waterways in Washington are now banned. But the decision is being criticized by some who say the vote was rushed and it doesn't follow new science. We'll explain when the story returns. To the state of Washington now, where there's a push to overturn a new policy that went into effect this month. That policy bans commercial fish farms in state waterways. Leaders of the Department of Natural Resources voted to end the practice last month. Environment Northwest reporter Leah Pizzetti discovered several agencies say the science does not support the decision.
It's been nearly 8 years since a floating salmon farm broke loose near Cypress Island in Skagit County. 250,000 non-native Atlantic salmon got loose into the Salish Sea.
The collapse was a true act of negligence.
That was in 2017, but today there's public policy controversy stemming from that disaster. Since then, DNR has been phasing out net pens, first shifting to only growing native fish. Now, the agency has banned all commercial net pens in state waters.
These net pen fish farms on our state-owned aquatic lands, it was very clear there was impacts.
In her final meeting as Public Lands Commissioner, Hillary Franz put it to a vote. Critics saying DNR did not look at new science that shows net pens can be good and rushed the vote to happen before she left office.
The DNR rule was really rushed through in order to meet the time frame of the commissioner that was departing.
In the vote, 4 voted to ban the pens, but 2 members abstained, one saying she didn't have enough time to read the latest science.
I didn't feel comfortable casting a vote one way or the other. I felt like we could have had a little more conversation, particularly agency involvement in the conversation.
DNR's scientific report cited one 2022 study from the Department of Ecology that showed net pens can harm water quality, sensitive habitats, and species. But scientists throughout Western Washington say DNR did not consider the most up-to-date research that shows net pens can be good if maintained properly.
I can speak to the science of net pen aquaculture, and the science is very clear.
NOAA's Ken Kane is the research manager at the Manchester facility near Port Orchard.
It's clear that it's the most sustainable way to produce animal protein.
Kane says with this ban, the alternative is importing fish from other countries, leading to a larger carbon footprint, no control over standards, and more expensive fish for consumers.
In this country, we import almost 80% of the seafood that we consume, and that is not an environmentally sustainable way to do it.
Kane says scientists from multiple agencies have been monitoring the impacts of that 2017 spill and says there are no negative signs of Atlantic salmon impacts here locally, despite initial worries.
It didn't result in this catastrophic colonization of the Sound by Atlantic salmon like many seem to claim.
Jim Parsons is the president of the Northwest Aquaculture Alliance and CEO of Jamestown Seafood. Before the shutdown, Parsons says Puget Sound net pens produce the same quantity of fish that fishermen caught wild on the entire West Coast.
Net pens really represent a way for us to do this with low impacts to the environment when we compare it with other types of production.
A 2023 DNR document showed the agency intended to look at outside opinions before drafting a final plan, saying they'd tap the expertise of NOAA and the State Department of Fish and Wildlife. But when board members asked DNR about what other agencies helped in the final report and proposal, DNR said they relied on their own experts.
The expertise was all based in the department. Did you reach out to the other state agencies?
There wasn't any specific outreach that was done in this final phase, and my team is the experts.
We were not approached for comment.
Neither was the Department of Fish and Wildlife. Their chief scientist wrote in during the public comment period saying, quote, "In the absence of consulting with all the appropriate state agencies, DNR's analysis should be considered simply DNR's opinion rather than the best available science." Also divided on the ban, local tribes whose lives center around salmon. The Jamestown S'Klallam tribe, based in Sequim, has openly been against the ban, adapting net pens into their culture.
Look, we're really into this. We really care. And we want to feed our people because the wild stock is not enough anymore. And if I can make fish right here locally that is healthy and good for my people, we're going to invest in that.
The Upper Skagit and Swinomish tribes and the Lummi Nation disagree, thanking Franz for her work.
We'd love to wrap her in this blanket and honor her.
At a ceremony to celebrate the ban, the tribe said their focus is keeping native salmon healthy.
From our ancestors that salmon are as important as the air that we breathe.
It'll be a fight for years to come, I believe. But we're used to that as tribes. We will fight to protect the last fish.
A debate that many hope won't end here. DNR has emphasized it does not have to consult with other scientists. Former Commissioner Franz tells me DNR is a landowner and has the right to do what they want with their land. She also believes these scientists simply disagree with this decision, which is why there has been so much pushback. Multiple people tell me this ban could be reversed if the board revisited the topic and voted again. For Environment Northwest, I'm meteorologist Leah Pizzetti.
Well, that is the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. The good stuff is coming your way next. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. If you ever miss an episode of The Story at 6:30, we re-air the episode at 8:30 and 10:30 p.m. over on our TV app, KGW+. You can download the free app right now. It's on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. In the meantime, enjoy your Thursday night, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.